After her husband Francisco's death, 74-year-old Berenice believed the pain of loss would be the hardest thing she'd ever face, until she discovered that her own son and daughter-in-law had secretly sold her late husband's watch, the only keepsake she cherished. What they saw as a simple decision to save their failing business became the spark that exposed years of manipulation, control, and disrespect. Humiliated and heartbroken, Berenice confronted them with calm strength, demanding not the money but respect. When they tried to justify their betrayal, she revealed something they didn't expect. Francisco had foreseen everything. In a secret safe deposit box, he had left her the means to become completely independent. A hidden fortune, legal documents, and a small beach house prepared for the moment she would finally choose freedom over obedience. Armed with dignity and a quiet determination, Berenice decided to reclaim her life. She moved to the seaside home that her husband had lovingly prepared, leaving behind the house where she had been betrayed. There, surrounded by peace and the sound of waves, she rediscovered herself, not as a widow to be pitied, but as a woman who finally remembered who she was before being just a mother and a wife. Weeks later, her son David and his wife Valeria returned, not to demand but to apologize. Through painful honesty, they began to understand what they had destroyed. Trust, not property. Love, not wealth. For the first time, they listened, learned, and accepted her new rules. Rules of respect, independence, and equality. By the end, Berenice was no longer waiting for anyone's approval. She had learned that chosen solitude is far better than living under silent control, that forgiveness does not mean forgetting, and that true love, from a husband, from a son, from oneself, is built on respect. It was Tuesday morning when the phone rang. An unknown number. Normally I wouldn't have answered, but something deep inside told me I should. The voice on the other end was kind, yet what he said froze my blood. "Mrs. Veronica," he began. "I'm Charles, the owner of the Hope Watch Shop. I have something that belonged to your husband. Something I believe you need to see urgently." My heart stopped. Frank had died 6 months ago, and the only thing he had left me was his gold watch, the same one I couldn't find anywhere. I sat on the edge of my bed, my legs trembling. "Mr. Charles, what watch are you talking about?" My voice came out broken, though I tried to stay composed. "A gold watch, ma'am, with the initials FM engraved on the back. Your son and daughter-in-law sold it to me 3 days ago. But when I opened it to repair the mechanism, I found something they didn't know was there. Something I think you must see yourself." The words echoed painfully in my head. David and Valerie had sold Frank's watch. My watch. The only inheritance my husband had left after 45 years of marriage. The room began to spin around me. "Mr. Charles, that watch wasn't theirs to sell, it was mine." "I know, ma'am," he said softly. "That's why I'm calling. I think there's something deeper here. Something your family didn't understand. Can you come to my shop this afternoon?" I hung up, my hands shaking. I walked to the dresser where I kept the few valuable things I had left. I opened the top drawer, the same one where I had last placed the watch. Completely empty. How could I have been so foolish? How hadn't I noticed before? I remembered the last time I saw Frank wearing that watch. It was a Sunday morning. I was making coffee in the kitchen when he came up behind me and wrapped his arms around me. He was wearing the watch as always. "Veronica, my love," he said. "This watch has been with me since the day we married. When I'm gone, I want you to keep it. It's not just a watch. It's the time we've lived together. Every second it ticks is a second spent by your side." I smiled and told him not to talk like that we still had many years ahead of us. But he insisted. "Promise me you'll always keep it safe. It's worth more than you imagine." I promised him, as I always did. Now, 6 months after his death, that promise had been broken. Not by me but by our own son. I put on the green dress Frank had always loved to see me wear. If I was going to reclaim what was mine, I would do it with dignity. I arrived at the Hope Watch Shop at 3 in the afternoon. Charles was an elderly man, gray-haired and kind-eyed. "Mrs. Veronica," he said warmly. "I'm glad you came. I have the watch here, but before I show it to you, I need to ask you something. Did your husband ever mention that there was something special about this watch? Something beyond sentimental value? I shook my head. Frank was a reserved man, but he had never hidden anything important from me. Or at least I thought so. Charles disappeared into the back of the store and returned with a small box. Inside was Frank's watch, and something else. A tiny key and a folded piece of paper. Your husband was a clever man, Charles said. He built a hidden compartment inside the watch. When I opened it to repair the mechanism, these fell out. The paper bore Frank's handwriting. Precise, familiar, unmistakable. Veronica, if you're reading this, it means something has happened to me and someone has tried to take from you what is rightfully yours. This key opens something that only you should know about. Go to Central Bank downtown branch. Ask for safety deposit box number 1247. Tell them you are the sole beneficiary. All documents are in order. I love you, and this is to make sure you never depend on anyone again. My hands trembled as I read my husband's words. He had planned this. He knew something like this could happen. Charles watched me with quiet understanding. Your husband prepaid me for this repair more than a year ago, he explained. He told me that if anyone other than you ever brought the watch, I was to open it and call you immediately. He was a very foresight man. I took the watch, the key, and the note, placing them carefully into my purse, as if they were the most precious treasures in the world. And they were. Thank you, Charles, I whispered. You don't know what this means to me. He smiled kindly. Your husband was a good man. We talked several times whenever he came for maintenance. He always spoke of you with such love. He said you were the strongest woman he'd ever met, but that life sometimes makes strong people feel weak. He wanted to make sure you'd never feel that way. I left the shop with my heart pounding. Frank had been protecting me even after death, but I also felt pain and betrayal. My own son had sold the only thing his father had left me, without asking, without considering me, as if I were invisible in my own home. When I got home, I clutched Frank's watch to my chest. The house was quiet, but I knew David and Valerie were in the living room watching TV, as they always did after lunch. I went upstairs quietly. I needed time to process everything before confronting them. I sat on the bed I had shared with Frank for so many years. The watch was still ticking perfectly. Tick, 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 as if nothing had happened, as if it hadn't been betrayed by my own child's hands. I reread Frank's note. His handwriting, so careful, so steady, calmed me and gave me strength at the same time. He had thought of everything, even the possibility that our son might fail me like this. I remembered how things had changed after the funeral. At first, David and Valerie seemed concerned for me. They visited often, brought food, made sure I was okay. But little by little, their visits grew more frequent, and their intentions less pure. Mom, this house is too big for you alone, David had said one afternoon. Why don't you move in with us? You can sell the house and use the money to live more comfortably. I refused immediately. This house held 40 years of memories. Every corner whispered of Frank. I couldn't leave. I wouldn't leave. But David insisted, and Valerie too. Veronica, we only want what's best for you, Valerie said sweetly. At your age, living alone can be dangerous. What if you fall? What if you get sick? Their words sounded caring, but there was something in their eyes, a coldness, a calculation that chilled me. Then the invasions began. Valerie started going through my things. I'm just organizing, Veronica, she'd say. You've accumulated so much over the years. But I knew she wasn't organizing, she was taking inventory. David began asking questions about my finances. Mom, do you have all your papers in order? Do you know where your will is? Do you have life insurance? Questions a worried son might ask, but from his mouth they sounded different. One afternoon a month ago, I overheard them in the kitchen. They thought I was asleep upstairs, but I'd come down for a glass of water. Your dad's gold watch must be worth a fortune, Valerie whispered. You could sell it and use the money for the business. I don't know, Val. It's the only thing Dad left Mom. She'll notice. David, your mom's old. She forgets things lately. We'll tell her we took it for repairs. By the time she remembers, our money problems will be gone. And if she asks, we'll buy a cheap replica. She won't notice the difference. I froze in place, hearing my daughter-in-law plan to rob me. And worse, hearing my own son consider it. That night, I hid the watch in my dresser drawer, thinking it would be safe there. How foolish I had been. How blind. Now, sitting on my bed with the watch back in my hands, I finally understood everything. They hadn't sold the watch out of desperation. They had sold it out of greed. They had planned to steal the only thing Frank had left me. And they did it with a coldness that froze my soul. I heard footsteps on the stairs. David was coming up to my room. Quickly I hid the watch, the key, and the note inside my purse. "Mom, are you okay?" he asked. "I heard you come in, but you didn't come down to say hello. Open the door." David stood there with that fake smile I had learned to recognize over the past few months. "I'm fine, son. I was just resting. Did you go to the doctor? We saw you leave this morning." "I ran some errands," I replied. It wasn't a lie. I had gone to reclaim what was mine. David nodded, but his eyes scanned my room, as if searching for something, checking that everything was still in place. "Mom," he said cautiously, "Valerie and I have been talking. We think you should seriously consider moving in with us. This house is too much for you." "We've already talked about this, David. I'm not moving." "But Mom, think about it. You could sell the house, invest the money, and live peacefully with us. We'd take care of everything." "Everything," I repeated, my voice steady. "Like you took care of your father's watch." David's face turned pale. For a moment, the mask fell and I saw pure panic in his eyes. "What watch, Mom?" "The gold watch your father left me. The one that's no longer in my dresser." "Mom, I don't know what you're talking about." "David, don't lie to me. I know you sold it. I know you did it without telling me. I know you thought I was so old and foolish I wouldn't notice." My son stayed silent. His face shifted from panic to defense. "Mom, we only wanted to help. The business is going through a rough patch. We needed the money, and you never wear the watch. We thought you wouldn't miss it." "Wouldn't miss it?" I repeated in disbelief. "It was the only thing your father left me. The only thing I had from him." "Mom, don't exaggerate. Dad left you this house, his memories." "Your father left me that watch," I interrupted firmly. "He placed it in my hands the day before he died. He made me promise to always take care of it. And now you tell me I wouldn't miss it." David lowered his head. "Mom, I'm sorry, but it's done. We needed the money." "It's done," I echoed. "Is that all you have to say?" "Mom, when the business improves, we'll buy you another watch, a nicer one." I looked into his eyes. The man standing in front of me was no longer my son. He was a stranger who had lived in my house for months, planning how to steal from me. "David, go downstairs and tell Valerie to come up. Both of you. We need to talk." "Mom, that's not necessary right now." "Now, David." My voice came out with a firmness I hadn't used in years. David flinched and left without another word. While I waited, I took the watch from my purse and placed it on my wrist, where it always belonged, where Frank wanted it to be. I heard footsteps again. 2 pairs this time. David and Valerie were coming up together. He had surely told her that I knew everything. I stood by the window, my back to them, when they entered my room. I wanted them to see what they had done. I wanted them to see a woman who would no longer allow herself to be treated as if she were invisible. "Veronica, David told me you're upset about the watch," Valerie began, her voice dripping with that fake sweetness I had come to despise. Turn slowly. They both stood at the doorway like children caught doing something wrong. "Upset," I repeated quietly. My voice was calm, but each word carried a dignity I had forgotten I still possessed. "Veronica, we can explain." "There's nothing to explain, Valerie. You both went into my room, took what wasn't yours and sold it. The only thing I want to know is if you truly thought I was so stupid that I wouldn't notice." David and Valerie exchanged glances. And in that moment I understood. That's exactly what they had thought. They had bet on my weakness, my age, my supposed confusion. "Do you know what hurts me the most?" I asked quietly. "It's not that you sold the watch. It's that you believed you could." Valerie was the first to break the silence. Her voice had lost its sweetness and turned sharp, irritated, as if I were the one doing something wrong. "Veronica, don't be so dramatic. It was just an old watch. We have expenses, responsibilities. The business is in crisis. We needed the money." "Just an old watch," I repeated slowly, feeling each syllable burn. "That's what it was to you, just an old watch." David took a step forward. "Mom, Valerie's right. We have a company to run, employees to pay. You're retired now. You don't have those worries anymore." I looked at both of them, my son and daughter-in-law. Two people who had shared my table for years, eaten my food, received my care when they were sick. And there they stood, justifying why they had the right to steal from me, why they thought they were entitled to what wasn't theirs. Valerie sighed impatiently. "Veronica, let's be realistic. You live in a house that's too big for you. You don't work, you don't produce anything. We're the ones carrying the future of this family." Her words hit me like slaps. I don't work. I don't produce anything. As if the 45 years I spent caring for Frank, raising David, maintaining this home, meant nothing. As if my whole life had been useless. "Oh, I see," I said bitterly. "Since I don't produce, you think you're entitled to take what little I have left." "That's not what we mean, Mom," David tried to say, his tone almost pleading. "It's just that. You've already lived your life. We're just starting ours. It's normal for older generations to help the younger ones." "Help," I repeated, my voice dripping with contempt. "You call stealing help?" Valerie rolled her eyes. "We didn't steal anything, Veronica. The watch was just sitting there collecting dust. At least we put the money to productive use." "Productive use?" I echoed coldly. "Yes, for the business. To make more money. To secure your future. And my future. My security. That doesn't matter." David sighed. "Mom, you already have your pension, you have this house. You don't need more." "Who decides what I need?" "You." "Veronica, let's be practical," Valerie said, crossing her arms. "You're not going to marry again. You're not going to have more children. You're not starting a new life. That watch was just a keepsake for you. For us, it was an opportunity." Her words pierced my heart. It was true. I wasn't going to marry again. I wasn't going to have more children. But that didn't mean my life was over. That didn't mean I had no right to hold on to the memories of the only life I had ever known. "You're right, Valerie," I said quietly. "I won't marry again." But that watch wasn't just a memory. It was proof that someone once loved me. Proof that my life meant something to someone. "Mom, Dad loved you very much," David said softly. "That will never change. You don't need a watch to remember that." "David, you don't understand," I said, my voice trembling. "When you grow old, when you become invisible to the world, those small things are what remind you that you once mattered to someone." Valerie scoffed. "Oh, Veronica, you're so dramatic. You're not invisible. You're here, you're fine. You have a family." "A family," I repeated slowly. "A family that walks into my room and takes whatever they want. A family that decides for me what I need and what I don't. A family that lies to my face." "We didn't lie," said David quickly. "We just didn't tell you because we knew you'd react like this. Overreacting, making a whole scene about something that wasn't that important." I fell silent for a moment. I looked at my son. He truly believed what he was saying. He really thought my feelings didn't matter, that my pain wasn't important. "David, do you remember when you were 8 and lost your favorite soccer ball?" He frowned. "What does that have to do with anything? Do you remember how you cried? Do you remember how your father and I searched everywhere for it? We went through the entire neighborhood until we found it." "Yes, I remember." And why do you think we did that? It was just a ball. We could have bought you another one. David stayed silent. We did it because it mattered to you. Because we understood that ball meant something special to you. It didn't matter that to us it was just a toy. To you it was your treasure. Mom, it's not the same. Why not? Ask softly. Because this time it's me who's hurting. Because this time it's me who lost something important. Valerie sighed impatiently. Veronica, are you really comparing a child's situation to an adult's? We have real responsibilities. And my feelings aren't real. Your feelings are based on the past. Ours are based on the future. I stared at her. This woman who had entered my family, eaten at my table, received my affection for years. And there she was, telling me that my emotions didn't matter because they were from the past. Valerie, do you know the difference between you and me? I asked calmly. What? I built my past with love. And you're building your future with theft. Her face turned red with fury. How dare you? We're not thieves. Oh, really? Then what do you call taking something that doesn't belong to you without the owner's permission? It's different. We're family. So being family gives you the right to steal. Mom, enough, David interrupted. What's done is done. We can't turn back time. You're right, David. You can't turn back time, but you can return the watch. How are we supposed to return it? We already sold it. Then buy it back. Valerie laughed sarcastically. With what money? We told you, we're in a financial crisis. With the money you got from selling it. That money's already gone. It's been invested in the business. Then uninvest it. It's not that simple, Veronica. The money's already committed. I looked at both of them. They truly didn't grasp the magnitude of what they had done. They genuinely believed they had the right to control my life, my possessions, my feelings. Do you know what hurts me the most? I asked quietly. They said nothing. It's not that you sold the watch. It's that you didn't even think to ask me. That you assumed my feelings didn't matter. That you decided for me what was important and what wasn't. Mom, if we had asked, you would have said no. And doesn't that tell you something? Doesn't that tell you maybe you had no right to take it? David lowered his head. For the first time since the conversation began. He seemed genuinely remorseful. Mom, I'm sorry. Really, I am. But we can't change what happened. You're right, David. You can't change what happened, but you can decide what you'll do now. What do you want us to do? He asked. I want you to admit that what you did was wrong. I want you to understand that you hurt me. And I want my watch back. Valerie exhaled loudly. Veronica, we already told you. The money's gone. We can't buy the watch back. Then find a way. And if we can't, she challenged. I looked her straight in the eyes. Then you'll have to live with the consequences of what you've done. What do you mean? I mean actions have consequences. And you're both about to face yours. The silence that followed was deafening. David and Valerie exchanged nervous glances, each waiting for the other to speak. Finally, Valerie broke the tension with a bitter laugh. Consequences. What are you going to do, Veronica? Kick us out of your house. Let's be realistic. You need us more than we need you. Her words hit me like a punch in the stomach. But this time, instead of pain, I felt clarity. I need you, I repeated. For what exactly? For everything, Veronica, she said coldly. To take you to the doctor when you're sick. To help with heavy groceries. To take care of you when you can't take care of yourself. Oh, I see, I said with cutting calm. You take care of me in exchange for being able to take whatever you want whenever you please. Mom, that's not what Valerie meant. David started. Oh no. Then please explain what she did mean. She meant we're family. We take care of each other. And does taking care of each other include stealing? Valerie rolled her eyes again. Veronica, can you stop using that word? We didn't steal anything. We took something that belonged to the family and used it for the family's benefit. The family's benefit or yours. It's the same thing. No, Valerie, I said sharply. It's not the same. Because I'm part of this family too. And what you did didn't benefit me. It hurt me. Veronica, you don't have the same needs we do, she said, her tone growing harsher. You don't have to worry about the future anymore. And who says I don't? Who says I don't have plans? Who says I don't have dreams? Valerie laughed mockingly. Dreams? What kind of dreams could you possibly have at your age? I stared at her. This woman truly believed that life ended after 70, that I was just a burden waiting for death. Do you want to know what my dream was, Valerie? She crossed her arms. What? My dream was to spend my final years in peace, in the house Frank and I built together, surrounded by the love of my family, keeping the few memories I had left of a life I lived with dignity. And you can do that, Valerie said coldly. Oh really? How, when you walk into my room and take whatever you want? How, when I can't even trust my own family? David stepped closer and tried to take my hand. Mom, can you still trust us? I pulled my hand away. David, trust is something you build day by day, and you destroyed it in a single act. We can rebuild it, he said quietly. How? I asked. By giving you another chance to decide for me what I need and what I don't. Another chance to take whatever you want when it suits you. Valerie sighed, exasperated. Veronica, you're being too dramatic. It was just one time. Just one time, I repeated. And that makes it less serious. Less final. Valerie, do you have any jewelry that belonged to your mother? Yes, she said defensively. Her pearl earrings. How would you feel if I went into your room, took those earrings, and sold them to pay for something I needed? That's different. Why is it different? Because my mother is still alive. Oh, so because Frank is dead, what he left me has no sentimental value. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? Valerie fell silent. She had no answer, because she knew there was no justification for what they had done. Do you know what bothers me most, Valerie? I said softly. It's not that you don't understand the sentimental value of things. It's that you pretend you don't. I'm not pretending. Yes, you are, I said firmly. Because you're a woman. 'Cause you're a wife. And one day you'll be a widow. And when that day comes, you'll understand exactly how I feel right now. That won't happen for many years, she muttered. I hope so, I replied quietly. But when it does, you'll remember this conversation. And you'll realize that what you did today wasn't just taking a watch. It was taking my dignity. David sat down at the edge of my bed, silent. For the first time in the entire conversation, David looked truly affected. Mom, I never meant to hurt you. But you did, David. I know, and I'm sorry. Are you sorry because you hurt me, or because I found out? He hesitated for a moment, then looked down. I'm sorry because I hurt you. Really, I am. Then prove it. How? Give me back my watch. Mom, we already told you, we can't. Can't or won't. Valerie interrupted again. We can't, Veronica. The money is already invested in the business. If we pull it out now, we'll lose everything. Then you'll have to decide what's more important, your business or your family. Why does it have to be one or the other? David asked, frustrated. Because you made it one or the other the moment you decided to sell my watch without asking me. David stood up. Mom, please, there has to be another way. What way? I don't know something. David, the solution is simple. Give me back what's mine. And if we buy you another watch? A nicer, more modern one. I looked at him with a deep sadness. He still didn't understand. After everything we had said, after everything I had explained. He still didn't get that it wasn't about the object itself, but what it represented. David, if I burned all your childhood photos, would you be fine if I bought you a new album filled with pictures of other children? No, of course not. Why not? Because those photos have sentimental value. They can't be replaced. Exactly. And your father's watch can't be replaced either. Valerie sighed. Fine, Veronica, we understand that the watch had sentimental value, But it's already sold. We can't change that. The only thing we can do is move on. Move on, I repeated. Just like that. As if nothing happened. Like a family that makes mistakes but forgives each other, she said. Forgiveness is something you ask for, I replied. Not something you demand. We're asking you for forgiveness. No, I said firmly. You're asking me to accept what you did and pretend it never happened. What else do you want us to do? David asked. I want you to understand that some things can't be undone. That some wounds can't be healed with words. And I want you to understand that from now on, things are going to be different. Different how? Valerie asked. Different because I'm no longer the foolish old woman you can manipulate. Different because you no longer get to decide for me. Different because you won't have free access to my life, my house, or my belongings. David looked alarmed. Mom, what are you saying? I'm saying you'll have to earn my trust again. And that won't be easy. How can we earn your trust? That's a question you'll have to answer, I said coldly. I'm done making things easy for you. From now on, you'll have to show me that I deserve your respect. Valerie crossed her arms. And in the meantime, what? Are you going to punish us like we're children? I'm not punishing you, Valerie. I'm protecting myself. Protecting yourself from what? From being hurt again. Silence filled the room once more. The three of us stood there, knowing something had shifted forever, that nothing would ever go back to the way it was. For the first time in months, I was no longer the victim, and they were no longer the ones in control. I think it's time for you to leave, I finally said. You're kicking us out. Valerie snapped. I'm asking you to leave for today. I think we've said enough. David and Valerie headed toward the door. Before leaving, David turned around. Mom, this can't end like this. David, I said softly, this will end however you decide it ends. And with that they left. I closed the door behind them and stayed alone in my room, listening to the sound of their footsteps on the stairs, followed by the front door slamming louder than necessary. Then silence. I sat on my bed and took Frank's watch out of my purse. I held it in my hands, feeling its familiar weight. It still worked perfectly, ticking away as if the last few days hadn't happened, as if it hadn't been betrayed by the very hands that were supposed to protect it. But something in me had changed. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like a woman who had found her voice again, a woman who had finally said enough. I remembered what Charles had told me at the watch shop. Frank had once said I was the strongest woman he had ever met. Back then I hadn't felt strong at all. I'd spent months feeling invisible, manipulable, fragile. But now I understood what Frank had seen in me. Strength isn't always shouting or fighting. Sometimes strength is knowing when to stop letting others hurt you. I took the small key Charles had given me along with Frank's note and held it up to the light coming through the window. It was tiny, but according to my husband's words, it opened something important. Go to Central Bank downtown branch. Ask for safety deposit box number 1247. Frank had planned everything. He had known this day might come, the day I would need to stand on my own, the day my own family might fail me. I looked at the clock. It was 5 p.m. The bank would be closed until morning. But it didn't matter. I had waited 6 months without knowing that box even existed. I could wait one more night. That night, I didn't go downstairs for dinner. I wasn't hungry, and I didn't want to risk running into David or Valerie if they came back. From my window, I saw their car pull into the driveway around 8 p.m. I heard their muffled voices in the living room but couldn't make out what they were saying. Around 9, I heard footsteps on the stairs, light ones. Valerie knocked softly on my door. Veronica, can I come in? No, please. I don't want to talk. I just need 5 minutes. No, Valerie. I heard her standing there for a few moments. Then her footsteps retreated down the hall. An hour later I heard more steps. Heavier ones. David's voice. Mom, it's me. We'll talk tomorrow, David. Mom, please. I don't like leaving things like this. I didn't like it when you sold my watch, I said quietly. But it happened. Mom, don't be like this. Like what? Firm. Decisive. With boundaries. Cold, he said softly. I'm not being cold, David. I'm being clear. He was silent for a moment. Then his voice broke. Do you still love me, Mom? That question pierced my heart. David, loving you and allowing you to hurt me are two different things. I don't want to hurt you. But you did. It wasn't a mistake, it was a choice. And choices have consequences. What consequences? He asked. We'll see tomorrow. What are you going to do tomorrow? I'm going to start taking care of myself. What does that mean? It means, I said firmly, that I'm done waiting for you to take care of me. I'm going to start making my own decisions about my life. Mom, you're scaring me, David said, his voice trembling. I'm not scaring you, David, I replied softly. I'm warning you. After that, I heard no more footsteps. The house fell silent. That night I couldn't sleep, not from fear or anxiety, but from an unfamiliar sense of freedom I hadn't felt in years. It was as if I'd been carrying a heavy weight I didn't know I had. And finally I had set it down. At 6 in the morning I got up, showered, and dressed in my best dress, the red one Frank had given me for our last anniversary. If I was going to discover what my husband had left for me, I wanted to do it feeling like the woman he had loved. I had breakfast alone in the kitchen. David and Valerie were still asleep. I left a note on the table. Out running errands. Veronica. The central bank opened at 9. I arrived at 9:05. Good morning, I said to the receptionist. I'm here to access a safety deposit box. Number 1247. The young woman, brown-haired and polite, asked for my ID and the small key. Mrs. Veronica, yes, you're listed as the only authorized beneficiary. Your husband Frank opened this box 2 years ago. This is your first visit. Yes, I nodded. The first time. Very well. Please follow me. She led me into a small, quiet private room and placed a metal box on the table. Take all the time you need, ma'am. Ring the bell when you're finished. She left, closing the door behind her. I stood there alone with the box my husband had prepared for me. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside were several envelopes. The first had my name written in Frank's neat, careful handwriting. I opened it and began to read. My dearest Veronica. If you're reading this, it means something has happened to me, and that someone has tried to take away what's yours. I know our son. I love him deeply, but I also know his weaknesses. And I know Valerie. I know that if something happened to me, they might try to convince you that you depend on them. I want you to know you don't. My eyes filled with tears. Frank had known me better than I knew myself. He had predicted exactly what had happened. In this box, you'll find everything you need to be independent. There are documents for a savings account in your name, the real will, not the one I left with a family lawyer, and something more. Kept reading, my heart pounding. Veronica, over the years I've saved money in secret. Not much each month, but steadily. It was for your safety, so you would never have to depend on anyone, so you could live with dignity no matter what happened. I searched through the box and found a thick envelope filled with bank documents. I flipped through them quickly and gasped. Frank had been depositing money into an account under my name for 15 years. The final amount took my breath away. It was enough to live comfortably for the rest of my life. Enough to be truly independent. Enough to never again let anyone make me feel invisible. Another envelope contained a deed. Frank had purchased a small beach house, 2 hours from the city, in my name. This house is for you if you ever decide you need a new beginning. It's fully paid off. It's small but cozy. There's a garden where you can plant the flowers you love so much. It's yours, whenever you need it. There was one last smaller envelope. Inside was a photograph from our wedding day. On the back, in Frank's handwriting, were the words, for the bravest woman I know. Don't ever let anyone make you believe otherwise. I sat there in that quiet bank room crying, but not from sadness. They were tears of gratitude. Gratitude for a man who had loved me so deeply that he had planned my freedom even after his death. Frank had known this day might come, the day I'd have to choose between my dignity and my family. And he had given me the means to choose dignity. I placed all the documents carefully into my purse, rang the bell, and the clerk returned. "Everything all right, ma'am?" she asked. "Perfect," I said, smiling through tears. "Would you like to keep the box active?" "No," I said softly. "I don't need it anymore." When I left the bank, I felt like a different woman. I was no longer the same Veronica who had entered that morning. I was a woman with choices, with power, with the ability to decide her own future. As I walked through the busy downtown streets, I thought about everything I had discovered. Frank hadn't just left me money. He had left me freedom. The chance to live without fear, without manipulation, without disrespect. But he had also left me with a decision to make. What was I going to do with this new reality? When I got home, David and Valerie were waiting in the living room. They looked anxious, as if they'd been arguing all morning. "Mom, where were you?" "We were worried," David said, standing up. "I was out running errands, as I wrote in the note I left," I replied calmly. "What kind of errands?" Valerie asked suspiciously. "Personal ones." I started toward the stairs, but David stepped in front of me. "Mom, we need to talk. Valerie and I were thinking all night about what happened yesterday." "Oh, and what did you conclude?" "We think we need to find a solution that works for everyone." "For everyone, or for you too?" Valerie stepped closer. "Veronica, we want to make it up to you for the watch. We found a way to give you the money back." "How?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "We can borrow from my parents," David said quickly. "We'll buy you another watch, the same model as the one we sold." I looked at both of them. They still didn't understand. After everything that had happened, they still thought this was about the money. "David, Valerie, sit down, please." They sat on the sofa, watching me with expectant eyes. I remained standing. "Do you two really think this is about money?" "It's not," Valerie asked, frowning. "No, Valerie. It's not about the money." "Then what is it about?" "It's about respect," I said firmly. "It's about trust. It's about the fact that you treated me like I was invisible in my own home." David frowned. "Mom, we do respect you." "You respect me?" I asked, my voice calm but sharp. "Entering my room without permission, is that respect? Taking my things without asking, is that respect? Deciding what I need and what I don't, is that respect?" "Mom, it was a mistake in judgment," David said, trying to sound reasonable. "A mistake in judgment," I repeated. "You planned this, David. I heard you both talking in the kitchen a month ago. I heard Valerie say you could tell me you'd taken the watch to be repaired." Valerie went pale. You heard us." "I heard everything." And in that moment, I realized my own family was planning to steal from me. "Veronica, don't lie to me anymore, Valerie. Don't pretend. I know exactly what you thought of me. I know how you see me. How we see you. Yes, as a burden. As an old woman who's no longer useful. As someone whose opinions don't matter. Someone easy to manipulate." David stood up. "Mom, that's not true." "Not true. Then tell me, why didn't you ask for my permission to sell the watch?" "Because we knew you'd say no." "Exactly," I said coldly. "You knew I'd say no, and you did it anyway. Doesn't that tell you something about what you really think of my opinion?" Valerie sighed. "Veronica, sometimes adults have to make difficult decisions." "Adults?" Yes. "And what am I then?" You already don't have the same responsibilities," she said weakly. "Oh, so since I don't have the same responsibilities, I also don't have the same rights." "That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean, Valerie? Explain it. Explain why you thought you had the right to take something that belonged to me." She said nothing, because there was no explanation, no valid one. "Do you know what hurts me the most?" Continued It's not that you sold the watch. It's that you assumed I was so weak, so useless, so dependent on you, that you could do whatever you wanted with me. Mom, we never thought you were useless, David said quickly. No. Then why didn't you consult me? Why? Because we thought you'd worry unnecessarily. Worry unnecessarily about my own inheritance. Mom, the business was in crisis. We needed the money urgently. There wasn't time for long discussions. David, how long would it have taken to say, Mom, the business is struggling. Would you help us by selling Dad's watch? You would have said no. Maybe. Or maybe I would have said yes. But we'll never know because you decided my opinion didn't matter. Valerie stood. All right, Veronica. We understand you're upset. We understand we made a mistake. Do you really want to fix it? Yes, David said. Or do you just want me to shut up and go back to being the submissive old woman I was before? We just want things to go back to normal, Valerie said. Normal. I laughed softly. Normal was you disrespecting me and me allowing it. That normal is over. David stepped closer. Mom, what are you saying? I'm saying things are going to change. What kind of changes? For starters, you'll no longer have free access to this house. If you want to come, you'll have to call first and ask for permission. You're forbidding us from coming into your house? David asked, shocked. I'm asking you to respect me enough to ask before entering. This house has been my home for 40 years. You've been welcome here for many of them, but being welcome is a privilege, not a right. Valerie crossed her arms. And what if we don't agree with these new rules? Then you'll have to decide what's more important, your pride or your relationship with me. Veronica, you're being extreme, Valerie snapped. Extreme, echoed. Asking for respect is extreme. No, Valerie. What was extreme was entering my room and stealing from me. David sat back down, rubbing his face in frustration. Mom, this is getting out of control. No, David, I said calmly. For the first time in months, things are finally under control. Because for the first time, I'm in control of my own life. What else is going to change? You will no longer make decisions about my life without asking me. You will no longer assume you know what's best for me. And you will stop treating me like a burden. Mom, we never treated you like a burden. No. Then why did every visit end with you suggesting I sell the house? Why did every conversation end with you insisting I move in with you? Because we were worried about you, David said. No, David. You wanted control. You wanted access to my assets. You wanted me dependent on you. Valerie stood again. All right, Veronica. I think you need time to calm down. When you're ready to be reasonable, we can talk. Reasonable, I said with a bitter smile. Defending my rights isn't being unreasonable. Defending your rights is fine, Valerie said, exasperated. But treating us like children isn't. I'm not punishing you, I said quietly. I'm teaching you. Teaching us. Yes, teaching you that actions have consequences. That you can't treat me however you want without repercussions. David sighed. And how long is this lesson going to last? Until you've learned it. And what's the lesson? That I deserve respect. That my voice matters. That I am not your property. Valerie grabbed her purse. Let's go, David. It's clear your mother isn't capable of having an adult conversation. I laughed softly. An adult conversation, Valerie, includes admitting when you're wrong. It includes apologizing sincerely. It includes real change. Not empty words. We already apologized, she said sharply. No, I corrected her. You asked me to forgive you. That's not the same thing. David stood. Mom, this can't go on like this. We're family. Family, David, I said slowly, doesn't mean you get to abuse me. Family means mutual respect. And if we can't agree, I met his eyes. Then we'll each go our separate ways. You're willing to lose your family over a watch. You were willing to lose my trust over a watch, I said quietly. I'm just defending what's left of my dignity. They headed toward the door without another word. Before leaving, David turned back. "Mom, I hope you reconsider." "David," I replied evenly. "I hope you do." And they left. I stayed alone in the living room. But for the first time in months, I didn't feel abandoned. Felt free. The following days passed in an unusual, but liberating silence. David and Valerie didn't visit. They didn't call. And I didn't miss them. It was as if they had decided to give me the silent treatment, hoping I would be the one to break first. But for the first time in years, silence didn't bother me. On the contrary, it gave me space. Space to think, to plan, to imagine what I wanted the rest of my life to look like. I took out the documents Frank had left me and studied them carefully. The beach house was small but beautiful. In the photos attached to the deed, it looked picturesque. A cozy little home with a garden that opened directly to the sea. Frank had chosen well. The bank account had enough money for me to live comfortably, without depending on anyone. I could stay in this house if I wanted to, or move to the beach if I preferred. I could travel. I could do whatever I wanted. For the first time in decades, I had real options. That Wednesday afternoon, I decided to call a taxi and go see the beach house with my own eyes. The ride took exactly 2 hours. The driver, an older man named Luis, was chatty and kind. "Vacation, ma'am?" he asked. "In a way, yes." "That's good. At our age, it's important to enjoy life, don't you think?" "You're absolutely right, Luis." When we arrived at the address, I couldn't believe my eyes. The house was perfect. Small, yes, but perfect for one person. It had 2 bedrooms, a living room that opened to the garden, and a kitchen with windows facing the ocean. "It's beautiful," I told the driver. "It's yours." "Yes," I smiled. "It's mine. You're very lucky. Living here must feel like being on a permanent vacation." He was right. As I walked through the garden, listening to the sound of the waves, I felt calmer than I had in years. Frank had thought of everything. He had chosen a place where I could be happy, a place where I could start over if I needed to. And maybe I did. On the way back, Luis told me about his own family. "I have 3 children," he said. 2 visit often, but the middle one. He drifted away after he got married. His wife doesn't care for us much." "And how do you handle that?" asked gently. "At first it hurt a lot," he said, smiling sadly. "But eventually I realized you can't force people to love you, not even your own children. True love has to be free." His words stayed with me for the rest of the trip. When I got home, there was an unfamiliar van parked outside. In the living room sat David, and a man I didn't recognize. "Mama," David said nervously, "this is Mr. Martinez, our lawyer. We need to talk to you." My heart started to race, but I kept my composure. "What do you need to talk about?" Mr. Martinez stood up. He was young, well-dressed, with a polite smile that didn't inspire much trust. "Mrs. Veronica," he began, "your son is concerned about your well-being. He tells me that lately you've been confused." "Confused?" I repeated slowly. "Yes," he said, "making irrational decisions, experiencing moments of paranoia." I turned to David in disbelief. "You told him I was confused." David avoided my eyes. "Mom, the other day you said things that didn't make sense. You accused your own family of stealing from you. Because they did steal from me." The lawyer stepped in. "Ma'am, according to your son, you've accused your family of selling your belongings without authorization. But he tells me you're a close family that makes joint decisions for everyone's benefit." "Joint decisions?" Asked sharply. "When exactly did you consult me before selling the watch?" "Ma'am," the lawyer said carefully, "sometimes elderly people can misinterpret normal situations." I raised an eyebrow. "Mr. Martinez, how old are you?" 32, ma'am." 32, I repeated. "And you think that gives you the authority to tell me, a 74-year-old woman, that I misinterpreted a normal situation?" "Ma'am, it's not about age. It's about..." "About what?" I interrupted. "My supposed confusion. My supposed paranoia." David finally spoke up. Mom, we just want to help you. Help me? I asked bitterly. By bringing a lawyer here to have me declared incompetent. No one said anything about declaring you incompetent, David said quickly. Then why is the lawyer here? Mr. Martinez cleared his throat. Mrs. Veronica, your son is considering requesting a psychiatric evaluation, purely to ensure your well-being. A psychiatric evaluation to ensure my well-being? I said coldly. Or to ensure his. Mom, please. David, I said slowly. Do you really think I'm crazy? I don't think you're crazy, he said. I just think you're confused. Confused about what? About what happened with the watch, about our conversation the other day, about everything. I sat down in my favorite armchair, the same one where Frank and I had spent so many afternoons talking, dreaming about our future, watching David grow up. Mr. Martinez, I said, may I ask you a few questions? Of course, ma'am. Do you believe that a 74-year-old person has the right to decide over her own belongings? Well, yes. As long as she's in full mental capacity. And do you believe that defending my rights means I'm not in full mental capacity? Not necessarily, but... Mr. Martinez, I interrupted. My son told you that they sold my watch without my permission. Is that true or false? David tensed. Mom. Let him answer, David. The lawyer hesitated. He explained that it was a family decision. A family decision, I repeated. Without including the owner of the object. Does that seem normal to you? Ma'am, as I understand, you all live together and... No, Mr. Martinez, I said firmly. They don't live with me. They visit me. This is my house. Mom, please don't complicate things, David murmured. Complicate things, said. Calling things by their real name is not complicating them. I stood up and walked to my desk. I opened the drawer and took out the documents Frank had left me. Mr. Martinez, could you tell me if these papers are in order? I handed him the bank documents and the deed to the beach house. He examined them carefully. His expression shifted, from condescending to astonished. Mrs. Veronica, he said finally, these documents are perfectly legitimate. And a very substantial. What do you mean by substantial? Yes. I mean, said Mr. Martinez, that you're a woman of considerable means, financially independent. David took a step forward. What documents are those, Mom? They're the papers your father left me. The ones I found because you sold my watch. What do you mean? I mean your father knew this could happen. He knew there might come a day when someone tried to manipulate me. And he left me the means to be independent. I briefly told them about the watch, the jeweler, and the safe deposit box. With every word, David grew paler. Mr. Martinez placed the documents neatly back in their folder and returned them to me. Mrs. Veronica, he said, it's perfectly clear that you're in full mental capacity, and that you have the resources to live independently. Thank you, counselor, I replied calmly. He turned toward David. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Your mother doesn't need any kind of evaluation. David remained silent. His plan had collapsed completely. Mr. Martinez, how much do I owe you for your time? Don't worry, ma'am, there's no charge. I insist. No, really, there was no service rendered. He left, leaving David and me alone in the living room. Mom, I didn't know about those documents, David murmured. No, you didn't, I said. Because you assumed I was a poor, dependent old woman who could be easily manipulated. That's not it. No. Then what was it? Why did you bring a lawyer here to declare me incompetent? Because I thought you were acting strange. Strange. I repeated, my voice cold. Defending myself is strange. It's just, you'd never been this firm before. And that scared you. He hesitated. Yes. Do you know why I was never this firm before, David? Why? Because I never had to be. Because your father protected me. Because your father respected me. Because with your father, I never had to choose between my dignity and my family. David lowered his head. Mom. I'm sorry. Are you sorry because you hurt me or because your plan failed? Because I hurt you. Truly. Yes, I said softly. Then prove it. David stood frozen in the middle of the room, as if unsure what to do with his hands, his body, or his shame. How can I prove it, Mom? That's a question only you can answer, I said. I'm not going to tell you what to do anymore. But give me a clue. Tell me where to start. I looked at him for a long moment. This 42-year-old man standing before me had once been my baby, the child I held through sleepless nights when he had a fever, the teenager I helped with homework, the young man I advised when he fell in love with Valerie. When had that child turned into a stranger who thought he had the right to control my life? Sit down, David. He obeyed, sitting on the sofa like a boy expecting a scolding. Do you remember when you were 12 and you lost your bike? Yes. Do you remember what happened? A bigger kid took it from me at the park. And what did you do? I came home crying. And what did I do? You went with me to find the kid. We found him, and you told him to give it back. And what else did I tell you? David thought for a moment. You told me to learn to defend myself, that no one has the right to take what's mine. Exactly. I taught you that defending what's yours isn't wrong, it's courageous. He nodded. So tell me, David, why do you think it's wrong that I'm defending what's mine? It's not wrong, Mom. I didn't think you'd notice. You didn't think I'd notice, or you hoped I wouldn't. I hoped you wouldn't. Why? Because I knew you'd be upset. And that didn't tell you anything. Yes. Didn't it occur to you that if you knew it would hurt me, maybe you shouldn't do it? David ran his hands through his hair. Yes. It should have told me that. But you did it anyway. Yes. Why? Because I was desperate, he whispered. The business was going under. We had debts. I thought you wouldn't understand. You thought I wouldn't understand that you needed money? I thought you wouldn't understand that it was an emergency. David, I said quietly, have I ever refused to help you when you truly needed it? He didn't answer. When you got married and needed money for the down payment on your house, what did I do? You gave it to me. No questions asked. No questions, I repeated. And when Valerie got pregnant and then lost the baby, and you needed money for medical bills, what did I do? You gave it to us. No questions. Exactly. So why didn't you come to me this time? David sighed deeply. Because this time it wasn't just money. It was a lot of money. And I knew you'd ask why. You'd want details. And that would have been bad. Not bad, but we were embarrassed. Embarrassed about what? Embarrassed that the business was failing. Embarrassed that we'd made bad decisions. Embarrassed to have to ask you for help again. So you preferred to steal from me rather than feel embarrassed. It wasn't stealing, Mom. What do you call taking something that doesn't belong to you, without permission? He swallowed. It was a desperate decision. A desperate decision would have been coming to me, explaining the situation and asking for help, I said firmly. What you did was a selfish decision. You're right, he said quietly. Do you really believe that, or are you saying what you think I want to hear? I believe it, he said, tears forming in his eyes. You're right. Then what are you going to do about it? He thought for several minutes, struggling to find the words. I don't know, Mom, he said finally. I don't know how to fix this. Do you want to fix it? Yes. Or do you just want things to go back to how they were, so you feel comfortable again? I want to fix it. For real. Good, I said softly. Then let's start from the beginning. The beginning. Yes. The beginning is admitting what you actually did. No excuses. No justifications. No minimizing. David took a deep breath. All right, he said. Valerie and I went into your room without permission. We took your watch without asking. We sold it without telling you. We lied about what happened. And when you confronted us, we tried to justify ourselves instead of taking responsibility. And how does that make you feel? I asked quietly. It makes me feel awful, he said. It makes me feel like someone I don't even like. Why? Because I hurt the person who's loved me more than anyone. Because I betrayed the trust of the woman who gave me everything. Because I acted like a thief. I saw tears roll down his cheeks, the first real tears I had seen since all of this began. David, I said gently, do you understand now why I can't just forgive and forget? Yes, he said, voice trembling. I understand. Do you understand why I need things to change? Yes. Yes, David said quietly. Do you understand why I can't trust you the way I used to? Yes, I do. Good, I said softly. That's the first step. What's the second? The second step is to talk to Valerie. Explain to her what you've just realized. And together decide if you're both truly willing to make the changes needed to rebuild this relationship. What kind of changes? That's for you two to decide, I said. But they have to be real changes, not empty promises. David stood up. Can I ask you something, Mom? Of course. Is there any chance things can ever go back to how they were before? No, David, I said gently. Things will never be the same again. His face fell. Oh, I've lost my mother forever. You haven't lost your mother, I said. But you have lost the version of her who allowed you to disrespect her. You lost the mother who didn't set boundaries. You lost the mother who always gave in to avoid conflict. He looked down. And which mother do I have now? You have a mother who still loves you, but who also loves herself. You have a mother who will support you when you truly need it, but won't allow you to abuse her kindness. You have a mother who will respect you if you respect her. That mother, will she forgive me? That mother already has, David, I said, smiling softly. But she won't forget, and she won't let it happen again. David stepped forward and hugged me. It was a different kind of hug, not the casual embrace of a son who takes his mother's love for granted, but the tight, trembling hug of a man who realizes he almost lost something irreplaceable. I love you, Mom. I love you too, David, I whispered. But love doesn't mean letting you hurt me. I understand. Really? Yes, I said. Really? He left that afternoon wearing an expression I hadn't seen in years, a mix of humility and determination, as if he'd finally understood that being an adult means facing the consequences of your actions. That night, I sat on my bed holding Frank's watch in my hands. I watched its steady rhythm, listened to the faint tick, tick, tick. This small object had triggered a revolution in my life. A revolution Frank had planned all along. Thank you, my love, I whispered to the watch. Thank you for reminding me that I'm still strong. 3 days later, David came back. This time he came alone. Mom, I talked to Valerie, he began. At first, she didn't understand why you were right, but after a long talk, after I explained everything you told me, I think she's starting to. Or at least trying to. Trying? Yes. She's still resisting. She says you're being dramatic, that you're exaggerating. And what did you tell her? I told her that if she were in your place, she'd react the same way, maybe worse. And how did she respond? She got angry. Said the comparison wasn't fair because she would never let anyone treat her that way. I smiled faintly. Interesting answer. Why? Because she's admitting you both treated me badly. But she's saying she wouldn't have allowed it to happen to her. David fell silent for a moment. You're right. I hadn't noticed that contradiction. Is Valerie willing to change? I don't know, Mom. Honestly, I don't. And what will you do if she's not? He sighed. I don't know that either. Well, I said, at least you're being honest. Mom, can I ask you something? Of course. What are you going to do now with your life? Smiled. I'm going to live it, David. On my own terms. 2 weeks after that conversation, I made a decision that changed everything. I moved to the beach house. It wasn't impulsive. It was deliberate, calm, and final. The house where I had lived with Frank for 40 years was full of beautiful memories. But it had also become the stage of my family's betrayal. I needed a new place. One where I could be the woman Frank always knew I was. The move was surprisingly liberating. I took only the essentials: my clothes, a few photos, Frank's favorite books, and of course his watch. Everything else I left behind. David could sell the house if he wanted. I no longer cared. The first morning in my new home, I woke up to the sound of the waves. I opened the curtains and saw the ocean stretching endlessly to the horizon. Felt like waking up inside a dream. I had breakfast in the garden with Frank's watch on my wrist. "Look where we ended up, my love," I whispered to the wind. "Exactly where you wanted me to be." David came to visit on the third day. He arrived in his car, visibly nervous. "Mom, are you really going to stay here?" "Yes, David. This is my home now. But it's so far from everything. What if you need something? I'll learn to take care of myself, like I should have done long ago." He sat on the small terrace facing the sea. "It looks peaceful here." "It is peaceful," I said. "No drama. No manipulation. No one taking my things without permission." "Mom, are you still angry?" "No, David," I said softly. "I'm not angry anymore. I'm at peace." At peace. Yes, at peace with putting my well-being first. At peace with refusing to be disrespected. At peace with living alone, but with dignity. David looked out at the sea. "Valerie and I can come visit you. She's starting to understand why you moved." "Starting?" "Yes. She says maybe she overreacted. Maybe she didn't understand how important the watch was to you." "Maybe," I said gently. "Mom, Valerie's proud. It's hard for her to admit when she's wrong." "David," I replied, "I'm proud too. But I've learned that pride is worth nothing if it costs you your dignity." He nodded slowly. "What does Valerie need to do for you to forgive her?" "She doesn't need my forgiveness, David. She needs to forgive herself. She needs to understand that what she did was wrong, and decide what kind of person she wants to be. And in the meantime, I said with a quiet smile, I'm going to be happy here, with or without you." That afternoon, after David left, I walked along the beach. It was a small, quiet place, mostly fishermen and a few local families. An older woman who lived next door approached me. "You must be the new neighbor," she said kindly. "I'm Martha." "Nice to meet you, Martha." "I'm Veronica." "Here for a few days of vacation." "No, I've moved here permanently." "How wonderful," she said with a warm smile. "That house needed someone. Your husband used to visit sometimes, but he always seemed sad that it was empty." "You knew my husband?" "Of course. Frank was a lovely man. Always asked how my garden was doing, if the house was being kept up. He used to say that someday his wife would come live here." "Did he really say that?" asked, my throat tightening. "Many times," she said. "He always said you were a strong woman, but that the world didn't always let you show it." "She said this house was meant for when you were ready to be free," Martha told me with a gentle smile. I was speechless. Frank had understood my future better than I ever did myself. "Would you like to have coffee tomorrow?" she asked. "I could tell you more about Frank, and about the neighborhood." "I'd love that," I said softly. That night, I sat on the terrace under the stars. For the first time in years, I felt completely in control of my life. I wasn't waiting for anyone to arrive. I wasn't worried someone might take something from my room. I wasn't walking on eggshells to avoid conflict. I was simply being me. The next morning, Martha came over for coffee. She told me that Frank used to visit the house every few months to make sure everything was in order, and that he always spoke of me with deep love and admiration. "He said you'd given so much of yourself to your family," she said, "that you were such a devoted wife and mother you sometimes forgot to be just Veronica." "He said that?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Yes. And he said this house was meant for the day you remembered who you were before being a wife and mother." Those words pierced straight through my heart. Frank had seen what I had lost over the years, the parts of myself I had quietly buried beneath duty, love, and silence. A week later, David came again, this time with Valerie. They looked uncomfortable, but at least they had come. Veronica, Valerie said, her voice softer than I had ever heard it, stripped of arrogance, trembling slightly. I came to apologize. To apologize for what, exactly? Yes. For taking your watch without permission. For selling it without asking you. For treating you like your feelings didn't matter. And why are you apologizing now? Because David helped me see something. What's that? He asked me how I'd feel if my mother-in-law came into my house and sold my mother's earrings to pay her own bills. And how would you feel? Furious, she said, her eyes filling with shame. Betrayed. Disrespected. And then, I realized that's exactly what we did to you. For the first time since all this began, Valerie seemed truly sincere. Valerie, I asked softly, do you understand why I moved here? I understand that you needed space, she said. That you couldn't keep living in a house where you'd been disrespected. And do you understand this wasn't just about a watch? Yes, she nodded. It was about much more than that. It was about treating you like you were invisible. About assuming we could make decisions for you. About not valuing your feelings. I looked at her in silence for a long moment. She seemed genuine. Fragile in a way I hadn't seen before. What are you going to do differently now? David spoke first. We're going to respect you. We'll consult you before making any decision that affects you. We'll treat you like the independent woman you are. And you, Valerie. I'm going to admit that I didn't understand what it means to grow old with dignity, she said. I'm going to stop assuming I know what's best for you. I'm going to value your experience instead of dismissing it. I smiled slightly. Does this mean I can visit you again? Of course, Mom, David said. But only if you want to. And does it mean you can visit me here? Valerie's eyes lit up. Can we? She asked hopefully. You can, I said. But the rules are different now. What rules? The rule is that you treat me like an adult. An independent woman who deserves respect. The rule is that you never assume what I need or want. The rule is that you ask before you give opinions about my life. David nodded. Those rules sound fair. And you, Valerie? Yes. Yes, she said softly. They're fair. That afternoon after they left, I sat on my terrace with a cup of tea. The sun was setting over the ocean, painting the sky in gold and pink. A breathtaking sight that seemed to whisper peace. I took Frank's watch from my wrist and held it in my palm. We did it, my love, I whispered. I made it to where you always wanted me to be. The watch kept ticking, tick, tick, tick. But now every second belonged entirely to me. I was no longer the fragile widow waiting for crumbs of affection from her family. I was Veronica, a 74-year-old woman who had learned that it's never too late to reclaim your dignity. A woman who had discovered that chosen solitude is far better than imposed companionship. A woman who had found her strength not in shouting or fighting, but in setting boundaries and making brave decisions. Months later, David and Valerie became frequent, but respectful visitors. They brought food, stayed for lunch, told me about their lives. But they no longer tried to make decisions for me. They no longer assumed they knew what was best. The relationship had changed forever. It was no longer between a vulnerable mother and her controlling children, but between adults who finally respected each other. And that, I finally understood, was exactly what Frank had wanted for me all along. The freedom to be respected. The freedom to be valued. The freedom to be myself. The watch kept ticking steadily, marking every second of my new life. A life where every moment belonged entirely to me. A life lived completely on my own terms.